Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
All right. Hello and welcome to episode number 24 of season 2. My name is Tamara and you're listening to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Carissa is back, as well as Heidi Gruss, who is a psychotherapist, transformation strategist, and entrepreneur. For our follow-up episode, we'll be talking about forcing relationships and more about the program Heidi offers. And if you like this episode, be sure to tell your friends about it. And thanks for joining me today, Heidi and Carissa.
Thank you, Tamara. It's great to be here.
Same here. I'm happy to be with you ladies again on a wonderful Sunday morning.
Yes, thanks again. All right. So to get this started, I brought up the topic of forcing relationships. And I did because I know at least 2 guys who are dating women or were dating now, women who they said initially weren't their type, but the women were basically making it so easy and just made it very clear that they wanted them. And the guys, because it was so, I would say effortless, or they were doing so much for them, they liked the nurturing, that they just let it continue, even though they knew they weren't necessarily interested in long term. But the women, and they even told the women, but women were like, no, like we're good for each other. And I did something similar to this before as well. So I wanted to get Heidi's take as a professional on what that's about and how to potentially stop ourselves from doing that, if that is the case. So over to you, Heidi.
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. And really, I think we have to acknowledge that when we're forcing anything to happen in our life, we're really pushing something, we're trying to force something to work that, might be out of our control. We're trying to exert a sense of control over something that we don't actually have control over. So that's just one very obvious observation in some of the examples that you've given and we've talked prior to this podcast a little bit about as well. And so first and foremost, it's like, where is this desire coming from? Why is it so important to make this relationship work? What's at stake if the relationship doesn't work? I think those are some really, first step self-awareness questions, that I would be suggesting that my client reflect on. Because how a relationship starts is then the foundation for how it's going to continue. So if we're starting the relationship from a position of enforcer, where we're trying to, create maybe sort of the rules or the dynamics or the roles in the relationship, and take control over maintaining those, you're then going to assume that role for the rest of the relationship.
Wow. Yeah, I could see that. And like you said, the foundation and how it goes, if that's how you want it to go, then be careful what you wish for, maybe.
When my clients start working with me, there's always some sort of desired outcome, right? And so here in this instance, what you're describing is the relationship is the desired outcome, as if it's a destination. And where I see this being most problematic is that relationships are not static. They're forever evolving, they're forever developing. And they're also the result of 2 or more people connecting. When we're talking about people, we're talking about very complex, dynamics here. We're complicated beings, we're intellectual, we're emotional, we're spiritual. And so to look at achieving a relationship as the end goal, I have no doubt that my clients can achieve relationships. What I want them really looking at is, who do you want to be in this relationship, right? So if you're forcing a relationship to work, what is that saying about you? Let's really focus on you. We don't have control over the other person. So how does it feel when you're forcing something? You know, what is that like? What does it feel in your body? What is it like day after day living in that space when you're really trying to force something to work? What does that feel like? And then on the other side, have you ever been in a situation where someone's forcing something upon you? And what does that feel like? And so, let's put names and labels to these feelings. What are the words that come to mind?
Well, I'll jump in. I think that was a really good insight by turning it around, because I think most people, especially me, I will have a very visceral reaction when someone is trying to force me to do something. You have that internal battle with yourself to say, okay, am I having this? Well, one, I have a problem with people telling me to do something rather than asking. So I have to, in my head, very clearly say, okay, is this something that I would have done whether they are telling me to do it or not? But two, yeah, I'm certainly not a believer in being forced in a relationship. And it is, as you said, an ever evolving communication between two people that have a connection. And I think for me, that's where everything lies, is there a connection? And does the other person want to put in as much effort as I want to put in? And do we want to grow together to make each other better? And I think that's where I don't want to say nobody, because that's a, big all encompassing word, but I think we all want to have a partner in our lives. And I think we settle for something or do something or force something that may or may not be natural, just to not be quote unquote lonely or alone. And that's where I think looking inward is the problem.
It's looking inward is where you're going to find the solution here, because if achieving the relationship is just to avoid being alone, well, then how are you settling? Think about, gosh, I want all my clients to know their values, right? As a being, what's important to you. And when we're really clear on our values, what's important to us, that then guides our choices. It guides our decisions. It guides how we prioritize things in our life, right? And so if it's more important to just be in relationship with someone, perhaps are you sacrificing something that's very important to you? Are you sacrificing a value that you really need in order to maintain this relationship long term? Because when I hear, the two of you talking about being in relationship, it's not just to achieve a relationship, it's to then have a lifelong relationship. So we have to look at the end goal here is really a happy, healthy, unconditionally loving, respectful relationship. So if someone is forcing a relationship, to me, I question, is there respect there? Is there respect? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it started where these women thought the guy was on the same page with them, and maybe the guy wasn't honest enough to actually admit that they may not have thought the same way. And the women probably thought, okay, this is the guy for me. But it's only because the guys weren't giving them the full information for part of that. But I know the one guy, he said, like, I don't see this long term. And she's like, no, of course you do. Or we should, or, kind of thing. So I can see where that maybe is a respect thing on that part.
I was just going to say, commenting about what you specifically said. And, number one, words matter. And number two, if someone tells you who and or what they are, listen to them. Even if it's in a joking way, they are telling you, no, this is not what I want. This is who I am. Yes, I'm an asshole and I'm going to take advantage of you. Or that's not exactly what they say, but I mean, listen to the words they're choosing, listen to what they're saying. in any context, because they are telling you about themselves. And as women, I think it's important. We've been trained to be nice and to, make men happy. And at least in our generation, I mean, certainly my son's generation, that's not how it operates at all. And I think where the internal work needs to start, and we need to be okay with ourselves. Number one, because I have many friends that haven't put in the work, and they are first forcing relationships. And it's like, okay, if I'm not dating somebody or in a relationship, then that's something with my self-worth. And I watch it and I just shake my head, and I can't get on board. So, I know I'm kind of an anomaly, but I don't know, Heidi, I don't know if you want to comment on that part, but I just think listening to what someone is saying about themselves and what they are saying about what they want out of that relationship, let it naturally flow, and forcing it just creates further problems way down the line. Because I did that when I was in my 20s and I had a big problem. So.
Right. I mean, so, here's the thing. What we're talking about is being in alignment with ourselves. And so, first, we have to get really clear on what it means to be in alignment with ourselves. And to be in alignment, we have to know what's important to us. So the first step to this, in order to enter a relationship, we have to be really clear on what we need to thrive. Right? We need to be really important. We need to be really clear on what's important to us in terms of values. What are the non-negotiables? Right? And so then we're not living being held hostage by the other person communicating things to us. We're able to evaluate and assess for our needs and our values being met just through our own experience of that relationship, regardless if the person communicates directly to us or not. We have to be responsible for self. So that's where, really we have to shift this entire dynamic here. It's not so much the other person, because when you hold the confidence and self-worth that if and when this person does reveal something to you that's unsettling, that is a non-negotiable, that is challenging, a value of your own, you're going to be okay. And so when I'm hearing people say, I need this relationship to work, why my heart goes out to them is it feels like there's so much desperation there. It's like, okay, but let's get really clear. Again, this is part of the work that I do with clients. What is the worst case scenario if you don't achieve this? If you don't achieve the relationship, if you don't achieve the money goal for the year, if you don't achieve the job promotion, whatever it is, that outcome that you want, if you don't achieve that in the next 3 months, 6 months, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Yeah, good question.
What are you afraid of? What is it? How do you think that you're going to be perceived by someone else? And now let's pause. Might that reflect your own judgments of yourself? See, it's always going to come back to self.
I think many people are, in general, have difficulty with that pause and the silence and the thoughtfulness that it takes.
You know what? And this is where it's really getting into practice of stepping into the pause. The pause for me, I wrote an article on a pause moment last week on my blog, so people can find that on my website, HeidiGruss.com. And there's another article coming out for March that's a little similar, that integrates my experience wading through that pause with a client, because it really is such a beautiful, magical moment. But the reason why you're saying that so many people have a problem with it is because it really represents some fear of what might come from this pause. What might I learn? What might I unveil? What might I feel in reaction to this pause. And the assumption is that it may be something uncomfortable or overwhelming or painful, right? But on the other side of that is also sort of the humble relief of, okay, we at least know what that pause is about, instead of avoiding, diverting, pretending that there's nothing really there. We have to step into those sort of overwhelming moments to be able to feel the magic on the other side. We have to go through that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I recently did what I read in a book, she called it a man cleanse. And I was kind of saying cleanse/purge, where I got off all the apps. Well, I was only on one, but I got off the app and I haven't been on for like 3 or 4 months. And it's been nice to just not worry about, am I getting a text or am I in anything, and just doing what I want and figuring out again what I like the most. So if that's the kind of pause.
Sometimes we have to set some boundaries. That's a good example of a boundary, right? Where we're creating space from something that's just creating too much chaos, right? Too much mind clutter, right? So we need to eliminate that in order to be able to sit in stillness with self and feel, because we can't think and feel at the same time. So really, part of the transformation that happens in my work is, helping people get comfortable with sitting with themselves instead of looking for that external thing, i.e. here, we're talking about relationships. How can relationships help me avoid having to sit with myself? If someone else is telling me that I'm worthy and they like me, then that's enough. I don't really have to like me as long as they like me. Well, no. Because if and when you like yourself, how are you going to show up differently in that relationship? How are you going to allow for so much more abundance and joy to come from that relationship?
Yeah, I know for myself, like I am talking to someone now that I dated before this, and I'm more comfortable just saying what's there for me. Like if I have a question, instead of hoping the best and not saying what I really want or asking for anything, I'm just finally saying what's there, requesting, asking, and saying my truth instead of, worrying about pleasing them and trying not to say the wrong thing. I'm just saying whatever is there for me now. So it's definitely been helpful.
I mean, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, right? And I tell my clients, maybe, say something maybe a little provocative or a little, sassy or testy, because wouldn't you want to know? I mean, why do you want to invest more time and energy into something that really has no lifespan here, right? So that's when you all came to me about this whole idea of forcing a relationship, it's like, oh my goodness, forcing a relationship really just means delaying the end.
Yeah.
Because at some point, you're going to hit that resentment with yourself for having tolerated so much that wasn't in alignment with who you really are and what it is you really need and what it is you have to offer a relationship.
Yeah, and goes back to the first episode we did with you. Stop tolerating the bullshit within yourself, it sounds like, for this one versus others. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you become clear as to who you are and what you stand for, then you have the responsibility for making sure that you live by that. Right? That's the next level of transformation. It's not just being aware. Now you're responsible to make that happen for you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
I would absolutely agree. I would absolutely agree with that. And I think kind of just real quick, circling back, that forcing the relationship, like you said, is inevitably just delaying the end. But also between that point and the end, you could be creating some very serious trauma for yourself in that space between where you realize, well, this probably isn't going to work, and the actual end. So like you said, stand in your truth and know. And, if it's like a deal breaker or if this isn't going to work and
Yeah,
it's not the right person, leave.
I hope it isn't trauma, of course, we never want that to happen, but we do know staying in that relationship and living according to someone else's values is going to build pain. It is going to build pain within yourself, because that's what happens when we keep sacrificing the things that are so important to us, believing that in the end we're going to get something wonderful, and then we don't achieve that wonderful thing. We're mad at ourselves because we knew the entire time, this doesn't feel right. I don't like who I'm being, right? So that's where it always comes back to self. And we can pretend, but why? Right? Again, if you're pretending in a relationship, it's not authentic. You're not even being you. So that's another sign.
And what is your, I guess, I know we don't have a lot of time here, but like, what's a good nugget to follow that up with that you would advise your clients, like in that space?
Of when you're pretending? I mean,
Yes.
so listen, here's the thing, right? If you want to continue to endorse your behavior by thinking, well, I'm telling a half truth, you're really lying to yourself. What is a half truth? It's a lie, right? Even if we're half lying, we're lying.
Yeah.
So let's just get really clear. This is the ego, right? The ego doesn't want to be shattered. The ego doesn't, want to be alone in fear of. That represents we're broken. There's something wrong with us. We're not worthy, right? But let's just be honest. Who do you need to be? That relationship had no chance if you're pretending to be someone who you really aren't, because we can't sustain that. We cannot sustain that. The truth shall set you free, right?
Yeah. It reminds me of a lot of movies where you pretend, to have all the same interests so you can get the guy. And then obviously, like you're saying, it would never work out. And that's what the book, The Surrendered Single, talks about. And I mentioned several times, when you go on a date, you're actually trying to find out if you like the guy or if you see compatibility, not to impress them, to get them to want you to go out again. So I know a lot of people approach dating where like, oh, let me get this guy to like me. It's like, no, you have to decide, do you like him? So it seems like it kind of goes along with what you're saying. And then how do you can answer that, or how you advise your clients in general? Are there clients that have had difficulty seeing they're lying to themselves, or do you think everyone knows deep down and just doesn't want to admit it necessarily?
Those are two completely separate questions. But the first piece here is, do you like yourself? Why is it so important for someone else to like you? Do you like yourself? Because when you like yourself, you don't need this stranger. I mean, if you're early on in a dating relationship, the person is basically a stranger. All you know about them is what they've initially presented to you. So why, if you don't care about what the cashier at the grocery store thinks of you, why do you care about this person who you've known for a hot second, what they think of you, right? Why is your sense of being contingent upon their opinion of you after knowing you for an hour or a week, right? I mean, really, and these are the breakthroughs here. And do we know that we're lying to ourselves? Well, how would you answer that?
Yeah. I mean,
we all know
yeah.
when we're lying to ourselves. We all know. And so what you're doing, and why people need coaches, why people need therapists, is because we know that the pretending or the lying, right? It's not working. Because that's why you're back in this cycle again. People are complaining about dating, not after one episode of dating, not one experience. It's after doing this over and over and over again and being exhausted by it. Well, we need to look at, how are you showing up to this experience? not what is the experience doing to you. Again, when we're aware of self, now we're responsible for our choices, for our behavior, for our thoughts, for our feelings. So.
No, yeah, that's awesome. And I think this is going to be, and I say this every time, but I mean, an amazing learning opportunity for a lot of people who they're just so sick of dating and hate dating. And if they look inward and see, like you said, who you show up each time and if that's working for you or not, and, you know, really being aware of who you are and liking yourself first, and maybe take that pause, like we talked about earlier, to make sure you do. Any parting thoughts for you, Heidi, in general? What do you want to make sure people know?
I think when people schedule breakthrough calls with me, it ultimately comes down to this same question over and over again. It's like, why do I keep doing the blank? And it's like, insert whatever self-sabotaging behavior it is, right? It's, why do I keep pretending? Why do I keep, telling myself that it's so important to get the tall, dark, handsome, man who's, working the 6-figure job? It's like, and the answer to that question is, again, redirecting the person back to self to identify all of these patterns, right? Because how you're approaching the relationship is the same way that you're approaching other aspects of your life, right? And getting into that breakthrough moment where it's like, okay, this is the pattern. Now we need to insert a disruptor. We need to, interrupt the pattern to build a healthier pattern. And we do that when we're really aware, we're really clear of who it is we have to be happy with ourselves.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carissa.
I agree. I was just going to say, Heidi, this has really been a pleasure. We appreciate you joining. And I think the 3 kind of points that I've taken from this, or that I think I'd like our listeners to take from this, is number 1, when you're on a date, you're really interviewing them to see if you like them, not vice versa. 2, take that pause to see what it is that's happening. And then 3, looking inward to, like you said, break a pattern that you might have started for yourself, and just breathe.
You summarized some good points there. Yeah.
Is there anything you would add, Heidi, to kind of complete this episode for you, to make sure you, everything else got said that you wanted to have said, or introduce your program, however you.
Ladies, the reality is we could probably talk about this for hours, right? Because it's such a complex piece here. But really, what's important is to not make it so complicated and simplify it, right? We could go into all the different nuances and details, but that's, again, where we start overthinking a process that when we return to self and we sit with how we feel and we assess for what's most important to us, it becomes a much simpler choice to decide, do I want to remain in this relationship or not? Yeah. So thank you so much. I hope all of your listeners took something valuable from the episode. And if you put in your show notes, my website, they can schedule a breakthrough call directly with me if they feel that would be helpful to help them understand themselves at a little bit deeper level. It's always easier to do with a coach, with a therapist, someone who can see all the signs, that can see the blind spots that we ourselves can't see.
Yeah, awesome. I will definitely put those in the show notes. And I know we talked in the last episode, you gave all your socials as well, so I can make sure we get those as well. Were you going to say something, Carissa, or?
I just was going to say thank you. It's definitely been a pleasure to talk again with you, Heidi, and definitely like and subscribe. Click below.
Yes. And tell your friends about it, because I know I get a lot of feedback from like my personal friends that say they really liked an episode or here and there, or like the show. And so I just recommend, if you feel the same way, definitely tell your friends about it. All right. Thank you, everyone. You have been listening to Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast, and hope you loved the episode as much as we did. Thank you. Thanks, Heidi. Thanks, Carissa.
To the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
Frank talk, sex and dating, educate.